Let's talk about this a little bit more with economist Kwame Owino, who's the CEO of the Institute for Economic Affairs. Kwame,
yes.
Where do we go from tomorrow the minute this is signed? What does this mean? Does this fill that hole that we're looking for? Are we going to be any better, or are things getting tighter?
Well, I think the first thing that it does is that relative to the fuel prices that we've had from the 1st of September, if the president signs in tomorrow, and if it takes effect immediately, it means by by Saturday, then fuel prices will be adjusted to reflect the fact that it will not be 16% VAT on top of fuel, it will be 8%. So in a way it comes down, but in real terms from September, it will still have been an 8% increment on the VAT alone. So prices will adjust downwards, but still it goes much higher than it was in August. Of course, it happens as well with phone, our calling rates and everything else. I'm sure everybody's prepared for this, so it'll adjust. So you'll see suddenly, in ways that we hadn't, your phone rates, your energy costs, your driving costs, fares, everything else will adjust by some amount that is not clear.
People are thinking it's a reprieve, you know. We've reduced the VAT on fuel, which, as we know, fuel is what has an effect on just about everything in the country.
Yeah.
However, then there's all of these other taxes.
Yes.
So are we any better after the passage of this?
No, it isn't, because there are some of them that had come down that actually the president has brought up. So, for instance, Parliament had stated that, look, there'd be no what we call the Robin Hood taxes, right? Taxes, which is basically your bank transfers. Of course, it's for a certain amount. So obviously, if you're transferring $1 million and above, or some amount that has been determined, then you will pay those rates. So that happens. Some of those had been taken back. So it's not exactly that we've gotten a reprieve. The tax rates have still gone up relative to what they were in August. And it's something that the way in which it happens in itself, actually, in my view, loses credibility for both the leadership of the Parliament on the one side, members of Parliament as well. I think they have that legislative cover in the sense that immunity, rather, when they're within the chambers. But some of that behavior is really, really not good. And it shows that some part of the administration in Parliament is not acting as an independent house. That's part of the problem.
So the wider, we've talked about what this means for the consumer, for you and me every day.
Yes.
For the economy, we've been talking about the budget deficit, where we are going, how much we owe, who we owe it to. Does this plug that hole in any way? To what extent is our economy now in a better place as a result of what's been
That is the unfortunate thing, and I thought the president would be aware of this. That is the unfortunate thing. With all due respect, the president will put his signature, his beautiful signature on this today, but it does not solve our problem. Why? Because the amount of money we get is not enough to cover our 600 billion deficit. I would have thought, and trouble is coming in the future, that's guaranteed. I would have thought he'd have preserved his political capital to have Parliament on his side, and then when this thing comes, because he's going to have to do the same thing next year, then we'd have much. But he's created such hostile ground, in my view, that when we face those crises that are coming, definitely, it'll be so difficult to get the alignment of Parliament that you're required, together with the executive, to solve these problems. It's unfortunate.
What we saw today in Parliament, because I know we can talk about the economics, we also have to talk about governance. Your views on just what happened in Parliament today, because they do go hand in hand. A lot of Kenyans are enraged. People don't understand, what happened, or, what's going on in Parliament. What's your view about the goings-on in Parliament and what it says about our decision-making process, our legislative process, and therefore, how we will manage just about everything, including our financial situation?
I actually think that, and there are very few people in Kenya who weep for Parliament whenever they face situations such as today. The truth is that the executive railroaded Parliament with the connivance of the minority leader and the majority leader. But it's a worry for us and the Institute of Economic Affairs, or anyone who's observing, because legislative power was rightly given through the Constitution and a referendum to Parliament. It looks us through some machinations that we did when the tyranny of numbers was a game in town, so to speak, and the country was so deeply divided that we are taking the view that the president can actually force Parliament, or rather take the legislative initiative away from Parliament, which this happens. I think this is definitely going to court. It's going to leave us with a mess. Whichever way the court decides, it's going to leave us with a mess, because right now it looks as if the president can legislate on his own and actually force Parliament one way or the other. It's pathetic for governance.
Indeed, we leave it at that.